I think, I just want to double check my time. We are ready. It is 10:10. Well, welcome. My name is Christy, and I am the owner of River Valley Cheese that is located out in Issaquah. Now, Issaquah is a very funny name, I know. Issaquah, though, just to be simple, is a very, oh, our Brie is ready. Oh, Alexa, stop. Sorry, I have something in the oven that we're taking care of here. But as Issaquah, let's take Alexa away. So Issaquah is 30 minutes east of Seattle. So basically, it's this really great town that's nestled in the mountains before you head to the east of the state. There's my friend Chris, wave. It's okay. This is live television. This is what really happens, people. So today we are going to focus on Brie, and some of you have beautiful Brie in front of you. But let me just share with you how today is going to roll. What we're going to do is we're going to take a look at how Brie is made. I'm going to make some, or just start some for you today. We're also going to take a look at what's going on here in the oven as far as some baked Brie, because that is delicious and it's so easy to do. It'll make you look like a superstar, and it only takes like 30 minutes, only 5 minutes of your dedicated time, and the rest is done in the oven. And then I'll tell you some history about Brie, and then we'll finish up with some Q&A. Sound good? All right, awesome. So I'm going to go check in my oven right now to see how we're doing. Oh, she's looking good. So we just baked off some Brie. I think it needs several more minutes, but I'm just gonna show it to you. Isn't she gorgeous? So sorry, it's a little heavy. I'm gonna put her down here, and we're gonna wait for it just to get a little bit more done. But while we're waiting for her to get done, let's go ahead, and I'm going to show you what we did today. So how you can make yourself look like a superstar when you make Brie at home. So this is super simple. It's so easy. All I have is a Brie and some puff pastry that you can get in the store. And a little tip and trick, I like to cut off the bottom portion of the Brie and then spread some whatever mixture you want on it. It makes it so much more melty and good. So all I did was see how I cut off just like a little hat. So maybe just like less than a third, maybe a quarter of the Brie. And so today what I have, this is one of my favorites. This is our delicious marmalade. And it's just a little bit bitter. It's made from Seville oranges. So many of you make your own jams and marmalades. This stuff is good. Other things that I love on Brie, if you don't have time to bake the Brie, all you have to do is pull the Brie out of the paper, go ahead and warm it up for 30 minutes, just leave it on the counter for 30 minutes, and then drizzle it with honey. So you can see here, I put a lot, and it's covering now the beautiful Brie, and I'm just gonna, you know what, a little bit more. When you're doing Brie like this, it does, you want to put more on it than you would think would be common sense. So I'm just going to flip the little hat on it, flip it upside down. There we go. So now what we have is the big portion sandwiched with a little portion on the bottom. And I'm just going to upturn the corners, and it doesn't have to be fancy. I'm not a fancy cook, you guys. I'm a cheesemaker. Let's just be clear. All right. So boom, done. Take up the corners. Oh yeah, baby. That looks good. Here is my pie tin. So all I'm going to do now is just take it and throw that in my pie tin. Now here's the thing. I line it with tin foil because it gets very messy. I don't like to clean up messes. Cheese is messy enough, right? And then just a little light egg wash. Now, if you want to, you can top it at the end, like the last 5 minutes of baking. You can top it with almonds. You can top it with honey. And other fillings. One of my favorite fillings, you guys, is pesto. So you do pesto with a little bit of sun-dried tomatoes in there. It's delicious. Also, that pepper jelly is amazing. And so I'm just egg washing this little guy right now to give it a nice little brown color. And I'm just gonna slip it in the oven. And all I do for baking Brie is follow the directions that are on the package for the pastry, because usually in that amount of time, 15 to 20 minutes, you will have, the puff pastry will be golden and your inside will be just gooey and delicious. And if it's not, and your puff starts to burn a little bit, just do the basic thing, you guys watch enough cooking shows to know, go ahead and put a little piece of tin foil on the top to prevent it from browning or burning. Okay, so I'm gonna put this little guy, say goodbye, put this in the oven. Oh, that's looking really good. So we have about 5 more minutes on the Brie through the magic of television that is in the oven. While that is finishing, let's talk about cheese for a second. Let's talk about Brie, because you know what? Brie is easily people's most favorite cheese. And I think it's because it has that gorgeous rind on the outside. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna wrap this guy. So it always comes in a paper, right? If it comes in a whole wheel like this. And so we have this really beautiful wheel. And then we like it because it has that creamy goodness on the inside. So the big pending question right now is what? Can you eat the rind? And the answer is it's all up to personal preference. And so I'll tell you what the rind is in a minute. You can make your own decision. So we love our Brie because she's creamy and good. And you have that gorgeous scent from her. Usually it's like earthy and mushroomy, and that's how it's described. How do we get that? Because here's the thing. Most cheeses are only made with 4 ingredients, and they're made with the same 4 ingredients. So milk, obviously, bacteria, rennet, and the definition of rennet is a coagulant. It is the curd maker in your cheese, and the last ingredient is salt. And so in Brie, just like in cheddar, those same 4 ingredients exist. So what makes Brie a little different? So today, let's go ahead and talk about that. I'm going to pull out, sorry, here's my ingredients. Our main ingredient, obviously, is milk. So the milk that, if you want to make Brie at home, make sure you get milk that is lightly pasteurized or low temperature pasteurized. But traditionally, did you guys know that I just discovered recently that Brie made in the region of France where it was originally discovered was made from milk that was leftover milk or milk that had an opportunity to set out. So a lot of the dairies, they usually like get their milk all together and they put it into the processing plant, or they would make cheese out of it right away. But Brie was really made by families or people that were very busy. And they would let their milk sit out for a couple of days. It would probably sour and ferment, which enabled it at that time in history, before we had cultivated cultures that we create in a lab, which enabled that beautiful white rind. It started the bacteria growth and the mold growth for that. So we add milk, obviously, and then we take our cultures. Now, the second ingredient in cheese is bacteria. So right here in this little container, we have a little bit of, you can kind of see it, I'll show it to you. See, it doesn't look, it's interesting, right? It just looks like yeast, kind of. It's a little bacteria. This bacteria has a job to do today. This is the bacteria that makes our cheeses creamy and melty. So in the world of cheeses, there are probably 2 big families of bacteria. There's thousands of bacteria cultures, but there's 2 main families of bacteria. And one of those bacteria creates the creamy and melty goodness that you find in cheese. The other bacteria, it creates a stretchy and melty goodness in cheese. So like think of an Italian cheese like mozzarella, and it has that stretchy goodness. That's a certain kind of bacteria called thermophilic bacteria. And mesophilic bacteria, which is the bacteria that is mostly present in creamy and melty cheeses, we'll find that in Bries, we'll find that in cheddars, we'll find that in Goudas, we'll find that in Emmentaler's. So we'll find that in any of those cheeses that are very creamy and melty. And so that's what we're using today. So we would use that bacteria. And also, we have another special friend on board. Now, it doesn't look any different, but I will show it to you guys anyway. This is the mold. That's mold right there. Mold cultivated in the lab. This is called Penicillium candidum. So penicillium, not penicillin. So those of you who are allergic to sulfa drugs, you can eat Brie, it's fine. But Penicillium candidum, and that just means it is white mold. And that's what we love about our Brie, right? So on the outside, when we add the both of those, that bacteria and that mold culture to the cheese, as she ages, she develops this gorgeous, fluffy white mold all over her. It is like the prettiest, like white carpet you've ever seen. I call it the pretty princess mold. That's what I call it, because it's just perfect. And that is why, now, if we saw something that had beautiful white mold encasing it, would you want to eat that? Would you want to put that in your mouth? Man, I'm thinking no, because that sets off all our biological warning signs, doesn't it, to eat something moldy. So this is why you find Brie wrapped in Brie paper. Brie paper is very special. It is typically breathable because cheese needs to breathe as it continues to age. So as soon as she develops a beautiful carpet of white mold all around her, cheesemakers will then put her in her white packaging to smash down the mold so that we will want to eat it later. So in essence, when you are eating the rind, y'all, you are eating mold. That's okay. If you like it, you like it. If you don't, just discard it. It's totally easy to do. So I'm going to check on our stuff in the oven here, see how we're doing, and see if we can, oh, I think she's almost done. Oh my goodness, can you believe? Oh yeah, and if you could smell it right now, you would be drooling. It has that beautiful pastry scent with the cheese mixed in with the marmalade. It is delicious. So I'm gonna go ahead. Oh, can you hear her? I don't know if you can hear her or not. She's nice and sizzly right now. So let's see if she's done. Got a little knife here. And we are gonna cut into it and see. So this is something you can do at home very easily. I think it still needs a few more minutes in the oven, but oh, we are off with post, people. Ready? Let's see if we have a little. Ooh, can you hear her? Oh yeah. Oh, we have a nice little cheesy, melty moment. She needs a few more minutes, but you can see how nice and gooey that she's getting. I'm going to put her back in, but you can also see too, see how this gorgeous pastry puff is going along. So I'm just going to close her up real quick and we'll put her back in. Okay, so let's talk about making Brie and how she is made. Oh, here we are. Okay, so before we got on camera today, I opened up the milk. I warmed the milk up because milk has to be warm to make cheese. So I warmed it to milk to 90 degrees. And then I added our very essential bacteria and our mold. And then I added our coagulant. Now our coagulant is called rennet. Rennet is typically derived from the stomach of a baby bull. That baby bull has to give its life for us to make cheese. But in the United States and Canada, most of our cheeses are made with a vegetarian rennet that is derived from the thistle plant. So none of you are really actually eating an animal, so it's okay. But it is typically what we're getting in the United States. And so what we have here is, can you see it? We have a solid mass. I'm going to spill a little, so don't freak out. It's okay. I'll clean up the mess later. But we have solid curd. See that curd? Isn't that awesome? So that is our Brie curd. Ooh. And she just there she is. She just flopped on the counter, but that's okay. We're going to use her and I'm going to show you guys what to do next. So in France, what they do is they'll take the curd, they'll make the beautiful curd just like we saw, and then put that back. They will scoop her out. Sorry, she's very fuzzy right now. Sorry, you guys, I know it's fuzzy. Hopefully we can get it back. I don't know how to get it back. I'm just gonna start scooping and hoping it gets unfuzzy. But this is a Brie mold. And so this Brie mold here, oh, here we go, we're back. This Brie mold is about 4 to 5 inches tall. And we are gonna fill up this Brie mold. Now you'll notice a couple of things about Brie mold, which is also with any cheese mold. They tend to have holes in it because what we want to do is release some of the byproducts. So milk is comprised, I'm just going to scoop this in, milk is comprised of 95% water. And our goal is to release that water out of the milk so that we can have a firm curd that has structure. So I'm just going to fill my mold up. You can see now she's filled up, and she's also starting to drain. That byproduct, which is whey, so Little Miss Muffet, she was eating curds and whey. That's where that came from. So we're just going to fill this up. And if we're making brie, we want to fill this up as tall as we can get it. So we want it to be heaping. Now, a regulation brie, like we were just looking at, let's take a look at the difference and what's going to happen over the next about 12 hours with her. So over the next 12 hours, you'll notice this brie mold is what? About 4 to 5 inches. And regulation bries are about 1.5 to 2 inches tall. So over time, the water will be released, the whey will be released from the brie, enabling us to have a very, only a 1-inch brie. But that's why we need to pack it so tall, because we don't want a pancake brie. And that's what people do in France when they're making brie. So here, let's see. All right, I'm gonna put this over here. We're gonna let that sit. I'm gonna show you what it looks like, hopefully in a little bit, and we'll have lost some of the mass. Right now, we're pretty even. So I'm gonna tell you a little bit about the history of brie. Brie has a very long history. Now, it isn't the oldest cheese on record. So the oldest cheese on record in the history that they can find is feta. Now, feta, they believe, was what they were talking about. Do you remember in the Odyssey when they started to raid the cave of Cyclops? And when they went to the cave of Cyclops, all the walls were lined with this golden goodness. That, they believe, was feta. And that's the first written record of cheese. Now, after that, Gouda comes next, but Brie is not far behind. Brie is the favorite. So, and the biggest person to help unify and bring Brie to the world was Charlemagne the Emperor. And he discovered Roquefort, and he also discovered, well, he didn't discover it, he ate it and loved it so much that he brought it to the rest of Europe when he was doing his little invasions. You know, it helps, I guess. During that time, you needed a little bit of invasion, I guess, so that you could spread the word and bring new cultures, new food. I guess the upside, the bad downside, yet. But here's the thing about what I find fascinating. So in France, because it's obviously a French cheese, it was developed mostly by monks. There are 2 regions, and maybe many of you guys have been wondering too, what's the difference between a brie and a camembert? And a brie is made just east of Paris, and a camembert is made in the region of Normandy. And the differences are very slight, but they're important to understand. So brie, made just east of Paris, is typically made in like about an 8-pound or a 6 to 16, actually, 6 to 16 pound mold. And it comes to looking like a nice big pizza. And then they just cut it up. And because it's so big and so flat, it doesn't take long for it to age. So it ages less time. And so a brie tends to be more mild, and it usually is about 1.5 to 2 inches tall, and it tends to be more mild than its friend, the camembert. Now, the camembert made in Normandy, they really let it age a lot longer. And their goal is to make as stinky of a cheese out of it as possible. Many of you remember, many of you guys have been to Europe yourselves, or your parents really liked stinky cheeses, particularly stinky bries. And in the United States, we do not find that to be very palatable, but all you got to do is let your brie sit on the counter just a little bit longer than you would normally. And that smell, so a brie that is fresh right now, what she smells like to me, she smells like grass, she smells very earthy, but she definitely smells like fresh grown grass right now. As she starts to age and she reaches her ripeness, and then goes past ripeness, she'll start to smell like ammonia. And at that point in time, most people in the United States and Canada would toss it but that's when the people in Europe enjoy it the most because it has the most flavor. Now, at that point in time, what's happening is when cheese is aging, the bacteria and the mold are eating the food and the proteins that are in the cheese, creating a sweeter cheese, and it's aging from the outside in. So proteolysis is occurring where it's getting sweeter on the outside, and then it ages, and on the inside of a cheese, the very center will be the least ripe area of cheese. And so when it starts to smell like ammonia, that means all the food has been eaten by the bacteria and the mold, and that your cheese is completely gone, dead at that point. But that's, for some people, really, really enjoy it. So that's the difference. All right, so I'm gonna grab, let's see where we're at with this guy. And, oh, that, this is it. I wish you could hear her. And so now we have the contact. We have beautiful, creamy Brie. One of my favorite stories about Brie is about King Louis. So King Louis XVI, the last king of France, he married Marie Antoinette. So to kind of put it into perspective, and this was at the time of the French Revolution. And I love this because he was, you know, I feel kind of bad for King Louis in a way. He was actually very progressive. He was trying to do, you know, in France, everything was very religiously segregated. He was trying to do away with every kind of religious segregation and trying to be very open. He was trying to get rid of serfdom. I mean, he was doing a lot of stuff. It just wasn't received very well by the people. And then he married Marie Antoinette, and no one liked that because she was from Austria. And at that time, the people were trying to build a new way of living through a constitution and democracy. But you know what? King Louis XVI was one of the only countries, one of the first countries to step up and help us against the Brits in 1776. So not soon after he helped the United States out to come, you know, during 1776, there was a band of people that went in and they tried to raid the castle and kill Marie Antoinette. Now let me kind of set the tone in modern era, because I think of really like the most popular people on the planet. Think of like Elizabeth Taylor and Richard Burton. And they have just finished making Cleopatra, the most expensive film on earth, with these lavish costumes and this amazing love story. And that is exactly how people really viewed Marie Antoinette and King Louis. They spent too much money. They had spent the most money ever on food and decor and their clothing. And the thing is, Marie Antoinette and King Louis were kind of delusional. So when this group of people tried to raid the castle, Marie Antoinette and Louis escaped with their children and an entourage. And he was really delusional because at that time he had no idea. He just thought this one group of people were after him, but at the end of the day, he thought that the people of his country loved him. And so he decided that he would stay with the people in the country, and he stopped at a tavern with his entourage and had this very long, elaborate meal, including Brie and wine, and was wanting to be loved by his people, but he was caught at that juncture. So he was caught at that point, and then 4 days later, he was executed by guillotine. So Brie can be good for you, but also I just love the fact that he loved Brie so much that he risked his life for it. I mean, really. So that is one of my favorite stories about Brie. So at this point, let's take a look at where our Brie is. All right, so we have our Brie, and she's lost about a quarter of her mass. And over time, what will happen is she will start to continue. So we need about 2 hours for her to continue to lose mass on her time. And so that's what will happen with her. And so at this point, do you guys have any questions about Brie, about cheese, about milk? How many of you guys actually, and this can be like raise your hand or just answer, how many of you guys have actually been to France or Europe and eaten Brie in that part of the world? Anybody? I'm sure a lot of you have. And so traditional Brie is made from raw milk. So in the United States and Canada, if you've eaten Brie that has been imported or made locally, it is Brie that is still Brie, but it is not traditional Brie. And those of you who have gone to Europe and been in France in particular, you have eaten Brie, because in the United States and Canada, there is a law that states that we cannot eat raw cheese unless it has been aged 60 days or more. And Brie, she ages approximately anywhere from 21 to 35, sometimes 45 days, but well under the 60-day limit. So if you're in those countries, that's what you're eating. You're eating raw milk Brie, which is, raw milk is very desirable when it comes to cheese because it has all of its fat molecules and protein strains intact, allowing for a very rich, creamy Brie. And also, you might be wondering too, what's triple cream? Triple cream Brie is when they add more and more cream. So they literally take cream and they add it to the mixture and they just make it that much more creamy. And usually I think about 60 to 70% fat at that point. And somehow they measure it and they know that that's the weight. So the weight, the proportions of fat is much higher, but that's why we love it so much. It's so, so good. And also Camembert, because she's such a stinky cheese, she has been banned. I don't know if the ban has been lifted, but she has been banned from public transit. So, and along with Issaquah cheese, they're very soft, stinky cheeses, and they have been banned from public transit because it has been offensive to travel with them. So anyway, any questions at all? Feel free to ask anything. And I'll just keep talking. So in the matter of a half an hour, what we would do is we would flip the Bries. And if you were to go to France, see if you can get yourself some YouTube videos. They were pretty amazing. You see these guys, you know, in the United States, Canada, we always are like, we have our hairnets on, we're donned with gloves. It's a very white sanitary environment. When in France and you watch these videos, they have these gigantic vats of like 100 gallons, 500 gallons, and they are sticking their hand, like sleeveless shirt. Okay, sleeveless shirt, they're sticking their hand, their hairy little hands, arms into the vats, and they are stirring the vats in a way that we would just not find it very cool in the United States. So it's very interesting to watch, as well as they have these gigantic scoops that are bigger than your head, and they will just scoop the curds into these gigantic molds. And then a lot of times you'll have molds that are in spruce, or they're wrapped in wood. And those are molds that will help them keep their shape, because as you can see, she's a very soft cheese. Here, that's a better angle. See how soft she is? Other cheeses, they tend to be firmer, and we put a weight on them. But because she's such a soft cheese, we don't really want to put any weight on her. We want her to be as creamy as possible. If we put weight on her, she would be as flat as a pancake. So we just let her naturally lose weight, her water weight, this way. So that's it, you guys. I hope that you guys are eating Brie, and that you're having a really good time eating Brie. Do you do you make any cheese that you look as male? Yeah, you know what, I ask that question, get asked that question a lot. I think my cheeses are always girls, and I don't know why. I always name them girls. Now I tried with Gouda, like it's a masculine cheese, and I named it a boy, but no, all my cheeses are girls, and I don't know why. But just because they're so cute, but especially the Brie, because she has that pretty, pretty princess mold, that beautiful mold that grows on her that is just gorgeous. So good question. Good, fair question. Any other questions before we check out today? Because I'm just keep talking. So next time we're together, I believe it's in May, because it's March now. Yes, okay, so in May or April, I can't remember, but we will be talking about milk. Milk is one of my favorite subjects of all time, because milk has changed so much since in my lifetime and in your lifetime. Oh, is my cheese available in Cape Cod? Ooh, I would come to Cape Cod and make cheese for you. In a heartbeat, just fly me out there. I'm ready. I'm ready to go on an airplane right now to Cape Cod. I've always wanted to go. But no, it is not available in Cape Cod. In fact, so in many states, I'm not licensed in certain states to make cheese because every state is governed by their own Department of Agriculture. So you have to be licensed by that state to make cheese, especially if you're a raw milk cheese maker. So in Washington, because it's one of the 12 states in the country, you can buy raw milk in a grocery store. Most of the states in the country, you have to, like 20 states, like I think Arizona as well, like those kind of states, you have to go to the dairy to get the milk. And then 20 other states, it's black market milk. Raw milk is black market. And I'm a raw milk cheese maker, so that is my limit. But yes, I'll see you in Cape Cod for sure, for sure. So next time we'll talk about milk, and we'll talk about how it's changed, because as kids, I'm guessing many of you grew up drinking raw milk or lightly pasteurized milk, because milk wasn't pasteurized until about 1946. And so most of us grew up with raw milk or pasteurized it at home. And milk that we get in the grocery store today, we can't make cheese from it unless you find a very special dairy that has decided to treat their milk differently, or you live in a state that allows you to have raw milk. So we'll talk more about that. And I'm hoping, let's just hope, you guys, that I can take you to a dairy in Washington State where they have robotic milkers. Yeah, the cows are milked by robots. So they're really good friends of ours, but the snow and the wind has done a lot of damage to their dairy. So we're just hoping that they can get everything together and do that. How did I get interested in making cheese was the question. Thanks, a great question. I'm a really good cheese eater. And so when I discovered that you can make cheese from the same 4 ingredients, and most cheeses, that's how they're made, doesn't it blow your mind a little bit? Because there's a lot of questions. I mean, I can eat a manchego cheese, which is a sheep's milk cheese from Spain, all day long, and that is made with the same ingredients or similar ingredients to our friend the Brie. And that's a hard cheese, and this is a very soft cheese. So once I dug in and got curious about it, that's when I got started. And also, I do come from a long line of dairy farmers. My family's Dutch, so about 1600s, they were dairying, and then they came over to the United States about 1700s, and then they had been dairying ever since. And my dad, when he went to college, is when they closed the dairy. So, and there's always Gouda molds in the barn for Dutch people. So I think that's just part of the heritage too. That's a great question. Thank you. So, all right, you guys. So next time, milk. And I think the cheese to eat with milk, and well, we talk about milk, if you guys think about it, go get yourself some good Gouda. Yes, get yourself some good Gouda. Gouda can be soft and Gouda can be hard. See if you can find a Gouda that is soft, and see if you can find a Gouda that is firm, because you'll be able to taste those little crystals in it. And we'll talk about milk. Okay, you guys, thank you so much. I had a really good time. Go eat some Brie. Have a great day. Thank you. Bye.